Good afternoon and welcome to this UniTaster Tuesday. My name is John. I'm here from UniTasterDays and I'm going to be hosting this event today, where today we're going to be looking at university courses in creative writing and providing essentially four things: tips on why you might want to consider creative writing as a course, tips on your application if you decide to apply, an overview of careers in creative writing, and also really what to expect on a creative writing course. And I'm delighted to be joined by Ruth from the University of Winchester. As well as that, we've got Georgia here from Edge Hill University and Ben here from Teesside University. So 3 different universities to provide this session looking at creative writing. Ruth's going to open things up with a introduction to creative writing courses. Then we're going to pass to Georgia, who's going to look at careers and also application tips. And then finally, Ben is here as an academic colleague to provide an overview from an academic perspective of what to expect on a creative writing course. I'm always conscious with these events, you've tuned in to hear from our fantastic speakers, not from myself. So I'll introduce our first speaker, that's Ruth, joining us from the University of Winchester to provide an introduction to university courses in creative.
Brilliant. Okay, so hopefully in terms of creative writing, you're here because you've got an interest in that particular subject, and actually it's a really kind of diverse and broad subject, and what that means is you've got loads of scope when you're looking at degrees and courses that you're interested in to decide what's going to kind of suit you best in terms of your personal interests. First of all, just kind of a bit of a mention about who I am and where I'm from. So I work for the University of Winchester and we're based down in the south of England. And what I would say at the moment is obviously getting to see universities and choose courses is a little bit trickier. Please make sure you look at virtual open days and virtual tours. In some ways, there's never been more stuff online to help you decide where you want to go. So make sure you do have a good look round. And actually what that gives you is the opportunity to explore places that are perhaps a bit further afield from where you are normally. Rather than driving kind of up and down the motorway, you're able to explore it in the sort of joy of your own home. So make sure you have a look at kind of what's available, because there is lots of stuff out there, so you can explore universities that are perhaps different to your local ones that you know. So why creative writing? It is really broad and varied. And what I would say is, and I think the other speakers today will testify to that, it is a diverse degree. That means that actually when you're doing your research, it can sometimes be a bit tricky because there's so many different options that are open in the course. It might be that you've got a particular style of writing you enjoy. It might be a particular genre that you want to focus on. You will find with degrees that you're actually looking at a huge range of options. So different styles and types of writing for different audiences. And in a similar way to kind of any other academic subject, you are looking at that kind of contextual information, the research that's involved within that particular course. So you are being creative, but on top of that, actually, you are also kind of learning your craft, if you like, in terms of your writing. And what we do find is lots of students want to combine creative writing with other sorts of subjects that they're exploring. So I'll go into a bit of detail about what you might do if, again, that's something you're certainly looking for. Creative writing degrees cover all aspects, and it might be that you have, like I've mentioned, a particular focus. So I know I spoke to a student a few weeks ago. She's really into kind of fan fiction. She writes a lot of kind of sci-fi, fantasy-based work. It might actually be that therefore the degree she's looking at in terms of creative writing is something a bit different. She might actually say, well, that's something I know about. That's something I feel confident writing about. I want to actually explore script writing and poetry, and I want to explore writing for businesses instead, as opposed to just kind of creative fiction. So it will depend on what you already write, what you enjoy writing, and as well as that, kind of the influences that you've had. I know some students are kind of, partway through their first novel during their time at university. Other students actually are creative, but maybe not in the same kind of vein of writing. So it will depend on where you're at in terms of your own creativity, but also kind of the output that you enjoy writing for. What we've seen increasingly, certainly a lot over the last kind of few months, certainly within kind of marketing, advertising routes, is actually getting kind of that empathy and warmth across in the writing and what's going on in terms of reflecting what's happening in society. Lots of campaigns were pulled quite early on in COVID because actually the way it was written or the way it was presented perhaps didn't then currently fit with what was going on in terms of in society. So creative writing has to be really responsive to what's going on. And what that means is when you're looking at choosing a degree is actually thinking about where your writing is now, but also where you want that to be kind of as you go further forward, and having that kind of market awareness. So we've seen a big move in recent years to things like, and only over lockdown, things like podcasts, people writing more fluently for kind of radio and drama, audio books that are abridged and slightly written slightly differently than maybe how they might be on the page. So all those things have kind of seen growth areas, and it might be that for you, having kind of a bit of market awareness when you're choosing your degree helps you decide, okay, where is going to be best for me? What's the skill that I need to develop as I go forward? Oops. So if you're interested in the creative, hopefully you like to write and read and that you're going to want to develop certainly those skills. It might be at the moment, if you're in school or college or you're studying a course, you've had the opportunity to be a bit creative. But what we see from some of the A-level programs or BTEC programs people might be studying is you haven't necessarily got a kind of free rein in terms of what you might be writing. What happens at university is you're given far more ownership over what you are writing and what kind of creative journeys you're taking. So it might be that in the short term, what the experience you're drawing on is maybe kind of slightly limited, but have a really good think about what you've enjoyed writing, the kind of things that you like to be involved in and reading, which means that you're picking kind of the right course for you. And what I would say is people sometimes think creative writing means you're just going to be sort of creatively writing every day, all day. Actually, the course is really varied, and you will find that as well as having kind of assignments and your own kind of creative input, you're actually doing an awful lot of collaboration as part of your degree. So I mentioned kind of it links with loads of other options, and for us, certainly at Winchester, we have a mixture of things you can connect with. So it might be you want to connect with things like professional writing. It might be you want to focus perhaps on English literature, if that's a subject you've studied at school or college before. It might be that actually you're not even after creative writing and you perhaps want something like film and screenwriting, which is pushing your creative kind of interest in a slightly different direction. What I would say is, and you can see from some of our degrees there, there's a mixture of kind of and with in the degree. If you're looking at a course with an and, it's usually about 50-50. So for something like creative writing and drama, it'd be 50% creative writing, 50% drama. If you're looking at some of the other courses where it's with, it can be a mixed split. So it might be kind of 70% of one subject, and obviously kind of 30% of the other. So it will have an impact dependent on kind of exactly what you're looking for. And be really broad in your search when you start, because it might be that because the course titles are sometimes slightly different, you need to have a really good explore round to see what's going to suit you best. Now, during the course, you're going to look at a huge range of different things. You will hopefully develop your own writing ability. And also perhaps be challenged. You know, you are going to be maybe looking at texts that you are not comfortable with. It might be that you are looking at authors that you've never explored before. I know some modules will look at kind of more looking at looking at kind of text from other cultures and other countries that you might not be familiar with in terms of kind of your understanding, so that you're coming to them kind of afresh in terms of what's there. The delivery outcome will vary, and certainly I know the other speakers today will talk about perhaps how courses are slightly different in terms of what's there. So although the label is creative writing on the degree, please make sure you have a good look at what's inside. And here are some of the modules that we offer for our particular programs. Now, across creative writing, you can see there, and I'm sorry, it's just a huge load of information, is a big range of things. So there you've got things like fiction for children, and actually you might particularly look at fairy tale fiction for children, thinking about actually kind of creativity and imagination. That might be what you want to explore in your degree. Or you might want to focus on something that's more publishing based, blogs and social media, how you might do speech writing, how you might write in terms of copywriting and kind of professional writing. So because you've got so much breadth of choice, it is quite important to have a bit of an understanding of what it is you really want to kind of get involved in. And that might be exploring stuff you've never had the chance to look at before, or you might have already quite a strong feeling of what you like and want to kind of stick to what you kind of know and you enjoy. So you can see from some of the modules that actually the course gives you so many options that allows you to really explore your creativity across the different areas that you might be interested in. And in most of the degrees, you actually are learning from kind of professionals, people who are authors and writers and have kind of honed their craft. And what I would say is, certainly I know if you ever watch or listen to interviews from authors, they will often approach their work in very different ways. Someone like a historical novelist will spend an awful lot of time perhaps doing the background research before they write, a single plot idea. You'll get other people who will write the entire plot and know what the ending is, and then work out how their characters kind of get there. Some authors that you'll speak to will say, actually, I just had this really strong vision of this particular character, and I had to work them into a story. So our lecturers will teach you from kind of the different perspectives that they have in writing and how they approach, how they put together different maybe types of and styles of writing to suit actually that creative process and what that looks like. Very often, you don't have a final draft the first time you write something. So thinking about actually that creative development and how to take on criticism in terms of if the plot is perhaps a bit weak, or actually you've kind of relied on very similar adjectives in terms of your description. And you're learning from each other. So most universities as well will have kind of creative writing societies where you can share your work, speak to students kind of outside of your formal lectures to be able to kind of explore ideas and themes and genres. And that's really important in terms of your critical analysis of what's going on as well. So a typical week will be quite mixed. You will look at a huge range of different things. You will obviously have lectures and seminars. And at the moment, some of these for us are in person, but also online. So it's a mixture of learning for this academic year. You will do a lot of workshopping in terms of coming up with ideas and reviewing the work. Most universities will have, again, places you can get your work published. We're really lucky. We have a really large writers' festival based in Winchester. And again, you can get involved in those kind of activities when they're happening to kind of develop your skills and widen your knowledge. So look out for all the extra things your university course can offer you to help develop your skills. And what I would say about students, again, I know this is a lot of information on one slide. Students like it for lots of different reasons. Some are coming to it because actually they've maybe not explored a huge amount of creative writing before, but think they know it's for them. Some actually are exploring whole different areas. So I know there's a example there where someone's saying actually they'd never really storyboarded for film before, and actually doing that creative process kind of had an impact on how they wrote and how they thought about writing. Certainly, we've seen it with some of the drama productions that have been kind of filmed post-COVID or currently at the moment. The way they've put together scripts and shots and scenery and how they're thinking about doing that has changed quite dramatically because of the current situation. So again, it's how it tests your creativity in terms of putting those things together. And what I would say is actually you're looking at exciting ways to be creative. So it might be you're someone who's got loads of ideas, but you're not someone who kind of completes and finishes a project. So actually part of the course might be about working out how you develop those skills, particularly to kind of get a finished product in place with your writing. Now, what you might need, again, will vary dependent on the university and the course. So there are certain course requirements. Some will require maybe English or an English-based subject at level 3. Others won't. They'll be quite flexible. And very often we know that you can't necessarily have done just all creative writing before you come to study the course, but we do like to see why you're interested in that subject. And the other speakers will spend a bit more time talking about that as well today. You will have lots of reading. That's not going to go away. You will look at things that you might enjoy reading, things that you don't. You might be looking at different ways and styles people are digesting and reading. Certainly things like the audiobooks have taken off a lot in the last few years. So how people are engaging with kind of literature and the creative world will be important things that you're also looking at through your degree. And it can take you in lots of different directions. What I would say is if you have a particular career in mind or particular focus, perhaps you want to work within, say, publishing, make sure those modules are in the kind of creative writing course that you're looking for. Not everyone in the degree is going to come out and be a kind of professional novelist straight away. But what we do find is people actually go into sectors where they're using all those different skills for creativity, the craft of writing, persuasive arguments, putting those kind of elements together. And it might be for you that the business side is actually something you're interested in. So make sure, again, the degree is offering you the opportunity to explore those areas as you complete your study. So finally, if you kind of think it's for you, make sure you really have a good consideration of what it is that you are good at, what you like, what you enjoy, what areas of the programme that actually you think, do you know what, I've not thought about that style of writing. That's definitely something I want to include in my degree. Read around the course. If you're studying at the moment, make sure you're kind of undertaking perhaps creative projects, or perhaps you like particularly writing poetry. Don't be afraid to tell us about that in your application. And one of the key areas I hope has kind of come across is make sure you research those courses really carefully. For creative writing, they're all going to be slightly different. They're all going to offer different opportunities. And it will depend on kind of where your interests lie as to which course is going to kind of be the best for you in terms of where you see yourself going in the future and where your skills are kind of at the moment. There is a creative writing Twitter feed for the University of Winchester, which is there at the bottom of the screen. So if you want to connect or ask any questions, then I would suggest you do that as well. I'll be lurking around in the chat for a few minutes. So if you have any questions, please post them in there and we can ask whilst the other presentations are going through. Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ruth. That was an excellent start to this event, looking at the introductory side of creative writing and hopefully whetting your appetite a little bit for creative writing courses. So big thank you to Ruth, who is joining us from the University of Winchester. Our second speaker today is Georgia, who is joining us from Edge Hill University. So Georgia's going to follow Ruth's session by talking about some application tips if you are interested in applying for a creative writing course, and also an overview of many careers that creative writing graduates go on to. So with that, I'll pass things straight over to Georgia, joining us from Edge Hill University. Thank you.
There we go. So hi, my name is Georgia. I'm from Edge Hill University. So I'm kind of the opposite to Ruth. So we're in the northwest of England, and we're in a little town called Ormskirk. And as Jon said, today I'm going to give you kind of the bookends of the creative writing course, so the application tips that you might need beforehand, and then the careers that could follow it. So in today's session, I'm going to start by telling you just a little bit about me and my background, and then we're going to talk about choosing the right course for you, some application tips, as I said, and then we're going to move on to creative writing to careers and also looking at the creative industry. So just a little bit about my background. So I studied my A-levels at college from 2014 to 2016. I then went on to study English literature at Edge Hill University, so where I work now. And since I graduated, I worked at Edge Hill as a student recruitment assistant for English history and creative writing. So that's kind of where my background comes into it. So to kick things off, I thought let's start by looking at choosing the right course. So obviously Ruth's give you a really good introduction there into what you should be looking for and what you might get out of a course. But just some top tips when you are choosing it. It's what I always say is, first of all, look at what courses interest you. So explore what's out there, and there might be something that suits your interests exactly. So it's really looking at those modules in detail and seeing if something aligns with the writing interests that you have. What universities offer them. So just because it's the same name, it might not be the same course. So all the different degrees are called creative writing BA honours, but they might offer you completely different things. So have a look and again, see which one you prefer. What kind of university do you want to go to? So as well as looking at the course, you want to be looking at, do you want to maybe move further away from home? Do you want to stay close? What type of accommodations do you want? Do you want maybe a city or maybe something a little bit quieter? So there's a lot of different options to be thinking about as well as the course. And then finally, what UCAS points or specific grades are required. So checking what you needed, and we'll go through what you need to look for in a minute. Some really good tips for how to choose your course. Of course, listening to talks like the one you are today, but also things like attending taster days, booking onto open days, looking at university websites and attending campus tours. So as Ruth said before, it might feel a little bit more difficult this year because you can't go to those physical open days, but actually I think it works in your guys' favour quite a bit because there is so much content online now. So to start with, looking at applying for creative writing. So as we spoke about before, obviously you'll need to meet those entry requirements for the different creative writing degrees, but they all will be different depending on what university you're looking at going to. But for most creative writing degrees, you will submit an application via UCAS, and you'll need to submit a personal statement, which you do for all degrees. But what's a little bit different about creative writing is that a lot of universities will ask you to submit a sample of your writing. So this is for obvious reasons, like we want to see if you can write, and everyone's samples will be different. So it's really important that you stay true to yourself and write something that you enjoy writing. So some extra application tips for writing that personal statement. Some people find it a little bit scary when they first start, but you'll find that there's a lot of advice and information online that can help you write it. So first of all, I always say, show your motivation. That's the most important thing, specifically if you're applying for a course like creative writing. So the admission tutors want to know why you want to study creative writing and what it is that you love about it so much. We want you to talk about your academic ability. So it's not necessarily listing off the grades because we can see it on UCAS, but it's thinking about what specific topics you enjoy writing about, and maybe aligning that with the modules of the universities that you're applying to. We want to hear about your skills and your attributes, and explain why they'll help you study the degree that you're applying for. Make use of any work experience or any extra reading that you've done, so you can refer to that in your personal statement and say, well, I was reading this book and it really inspired me to write this, and that's why I want to study it a little bit further. And finally, if you have any hobbies or interests that would enable you to stand out as a candidate, and obviously creative writing will come into this and your hobbies a lot. So let's fast forward. It's after the degree, you've had a great degree, you've had a great time, and you've got a lot of transferable skills. Now let's think about where you're going to go with those skills. So this is when we come to careers. So thinking about the future careers that you are interested in might be one way that some people decide which degree they want to go on. It is important to note that not everyone knows what careers they want to go into. I know I certainly didn't. And often people change their mind quite quickly when they're young. But I have found that a lot of students discover what careers they want to go into while they're on the degree. So a lot of universities will offer modules in things like placements, maybe in things like publishing companies and libraries. And I always think that's a really good place to start discovering what type of career you want to go into. But it is good to start thinking about it beforehand as well. So here is a little list of jobs that you might want to go into if you're interested in creative writing. So the ones on this slide are more subject specific. So as Ruth mentioned in the talk just before me, not everyone will go on to be a professional writer or a professional publisher, but a lot of people will. So these are some of the very subject specific careers people go into. And obviously, as you can tell, there's a huge variety. So people go into things like journalism, editing, and one big popular one that's come around in recent years is blogging. So I'd point out there that when people first started blogging, they didn't realise that it was going to be a career, and now it's a huge career that a lot of people blog from home and do that as a living. So also thinking about the jobs that you're interested in might not have even been created yet. And then on the next slide, so a little change there, these are some other careers. So a lot of our creative writing graduates go into things like teaching, where you study a PGCE, and then you teach things like creative writing and English to other people. Things like advertising, social media is a huge one these days. Content writing, so writing for other websites and other brands. Obviously marketing and advertising always come closely linked within creative writing. And then there's also things like museums, charities, business. If you think of any company in the world, everyone needs someone to write the content for them. So it's a really good, strong, transferable skill to have. So to just give you a couple of examples of the type of careers that graduates do go on to. So one of our graduates, Abby, went on to work with Penguin Random House, and she did this on a work placement when she was studying with us, and this led her to a job as a magazine journalist working for the official Jacqueline Wilson magazine, which when I was a kid, that was like the dream job. And we also had Harriet, who graduated from us in 2016, and she was working for Edge Hill University Press. So again, as Ruth said, a lot of universities have things like publication companies or literature festivals, and they're really good to get involved with while you're at university, because they make you look really appealing to different employers. So she went on to Cressy Publishing and she became a publishing assistant. And then finally we have Carrie Spray. She graduated from Edge Hill University and she's now a full-time author and has published 4 novels. So as you can see by outlining those 3 different graduates, you can see the different types of jobs that people go into. Often they are very closely connected with the degree, but often they can be completely different as well. And then finally, some top tips from me. So obviously working in the creative writing industry can be a little bit more difficult sometimes. So these are my top tips for you. So I would say gain as much work experience as possible. So some ideas include everything from volunteering from your school newspaper or at college to local libraries and publishing companies. I would say the more industry experience that you can get if you do want to work in the industry will make you more attractive to future employers. I'd also say enter creative writing competitions. So you can find a lot of free competitions online, and if you are someone that likes creative writing, you're going to find them really fun to enter, but it also looks great on your CV or your portfolio if you do win, and often the prizes can be really great as well. So it might be something you want to look out at that you've never thought about before. And finally, develop your creative writing skill set. So obviously university is one of the best places to do this, but take on board the advice that your university lecturers have to offer. As Ruth said, they're always professionals, they're always doing their own writing, they've published books before, so they've got a lot of good advice that they can pass on to their students. And push yourself, experiment with different types of writing, and just keep pushing yourself that a little bit further. So that's the end of my talk today. If you have got any questions, like Ruth said, pop them in the chat and I'll answer them during the presentation. But thank you so much for listening. I hope you found that helpful.
I'm back. Yeah, thank you, Georgia. That was an excellent overview of careers after a creative writing degree. Also some application tips touching on personal statements and also a bit more advice on picking course and things. So really appreciate that, Georgia. That's an excellent session. Thank you very much. Our final speaker today is Dr. Ben Lamb, who's joined us from Teesside University. And Ben is a member of academic staff. So Ben's going to finish the event off by talking from an academic perspective on what to expect if you do study creative writing and various aspects that are around that subject, which Ben's going to talk about in a second. So with that, as I said right at the start, always conscious that I'll keep my bits to a minimum and the experts to a maximum. So over to you, Dr. Ben Lamb, join us from Teesside University. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction there, John. That was very good. So what I want to talk to you today is, as you've just heard, what's it like for creative writing students on a day-to-day basis? We've heard the sort of careers you can go into, how to get a place on a degree, but what are you going to be doing on a daily basis? So hopefully I, as the course leader for our creative writing degree here at Teesside University, I'll be able to talk you through what you'll be doing for 3 years with myself and my team around me. Teesside is a university in the north, I should say, and it's about an hour's drive below Sunderland and Newcastle. So what is a creative writing degree like? I think there's a lot of incorrect assumptions out there. Creative writing as a recognised discipline and as something that's delivered at universities across the world is quite a young discipline, actually, but over time, universities have created a really well-respected and understood model of teaching you creative writing that can be applied to all sort of walks of life. So you may have heard some people say, oh, don't you just do poetry all the time? Or oh, aren't you just writing novels all the time? This is not the case. It's so much more diverse than that. And the way we teach it here is that we focus on these three things really. Obviously, there's a large degree of creativity in the classroom that we draw out of you. There is that old famous adage, there's a novel in everyone, and we truly believe that. But also being critical is an important part of creative writing. So it isn't just writing what's in your mind all the time. You do have to do elements of a traditional degree where you're learning theories, histories, and explaining to your examiners and teachers why you've written something in a particular way, what's original about your story. A key aspect of being a writer is figuring out what you're going to do that's original and different, and why people should spend time reading or indeed listening to your work. And all these aspects help you to become a really employable graduate. Now you'll see the picture I put on the screen there. The reason I put that is because it's a very unique type of degree, and some of the teaching aspects and learning aspects you won't have on any other type of degree. So I include a still of Darren Brown there because I like his phrase, forget everything you know. So having all been taught at GCSE and A-level, by the time you reach your degree, you're probably used to being examined within an inch of your life. Whereas a creative writing degree is very different. Now, some aspects of it will be a bit like the learning and teaching you've done on an A-level and indeed other degrees. So there will be some lectures on a weekly basis to give you a general overview and pique your interest in certain topics and just give you a breakdown of perhaps difficult concepts. You will have set readings on a weekly basis as well. It's not just writing. You can't be a skilled and really good writer without getting a sense of what's already been written before, what authors have achieved before and what they're doing now. So there will be weekly readings as well. There'll also be traditional seminar discussions as well, which is a space where you discuss what was discussed in the lecture and the readings you've been doing to try and express your ideas, share ideas, not only make sure you've understood something, but have an opportunity to explain what you think was really going on in the text. And perhaps you might disagree with somebody else on your course, and that's a key part of creative writing really. It's about being persuasive, putting forward an argument that can convince and engage and enthrall people. But perhaps the most distinctive part of a creative writing degree is what we like to call here workshops, or sometimes you might see them called labs. Workshops and labs is basically a 2-hour session usually in a classroom with a skilled writer, where they give you tasks and briefs and you draft things together as a group. And sometimes you might be playing games, acting scenes out. Just forget everything you know, like Darren Brown says. Every group is different, and what your seminar tutor will be doing will be trying to alter their teaching practice in a way that really gets you to analyse and think about your past and your perspective, and really be able to express emotionally your thoughts or characters or whatever type of writing it is you want to do. I know one of our lecturers, for example, he likes to bring in a shopping bag of items, and you have to pick an item and then try and construct a story around that item, and it has to play a central part in the story. It's all about challenging everything. I think that's creative spirit and refreshing way in which we look at the world is often, we have that as a child, but it's in order to assimilate with society and be a responsible and grown-up adult, we often forget that and cast that imaginative way of thinking to one side. So this is all about play. It's all about wordplay, games, tasks, writing to briefs, and really you leave your you've just got to be open-minded. So if you're quite have quite a closed mind, or there won't be anyone like that on the course. You leave your sort of perceptions at the door and just realise that it's a safe, open space where anything can be discussed. Obviously, on a creative writing degree, there's lots of redrafting as well. So War and Peace wasn't written in a day, as I often tell people, and that's why we don't really focus on exams so much. Most novelists, poets, screenwriters will go through their work several times, and that redrafting process happens in the classroom as well. You also do a lot of presenting. There is no successful writer out there who doesn't present, pitch their ideas, discuss their ideas, make money through doing tours, readings, and presenting your ideas to the rest of the class seems daunting, but by the end you will be really confident and employable. And I've mentioned responding to briefs as well. So often in the class, You'll be given a task and you have to write a short piece or maybe even a long piece that enraptures an audience, maintains their interest, and really puts across your view. And we also do things, like I say, on traditional degrees. So you will still be researching theory. You can't get away from literary theory and how it underpins the process of reading and writing. And that will help you. Listen to an author in a talk they've done. There is no author out there who doesn't really understand this stuff well. But you're also doing all types of writing as well. So like I said, it's not just poetry, it's not just novels, it's a wide array of different types of writing that I'll talk about in a minute. But please do remember, it is fun as well. There's no point doing a degree that you don't enjoy for 3 years. This can be your passport to any sector in the world, and we will guarantee that you enjoy it. And I just want to talk a bit more about a workshop as well. So this is how it works in the session. You will share some sort of work in the workshop or lab that you've done in your own time, or perhaps started to draft in your own time, and you'll develop it further. You'll all read each other's work and offer constructive, respectful, and helpful feedback, and helping one another to improve our writing. Because we often, when we often think of a writer, we think about someone who sits in the dark at home, completely alone. That's not the case, actually. Writing can be a really collaborative process. There is no author who won't have had to change their work in some way for an editor, discuss their ideas, convince someone that their work is worth publishing, and then have it ghost written and gone through and repackaged by many people on editing staff. And then, of course, if you want to go into TV or film as a writer, that's completely collaborative often. And yeah, so it's all, and as I've said there, this means that each week you'll be given a writing task to complete for the next session. So it's a cyclical thing. You'll come to class, you will be working on stuff in your own time, and that's key really in any degree, particularly creative writing. You have to be doing that work in your own time for class as well. In order for you to get the most out of classes, you need to be constantly reading, writing, researching, and you'll get the most out of the classroom session. And then the classroom session or the lab, the workshop, is where you get to air your views, your ideas, perfect them as a group, and by the time you graduate, you'll be an incredibly articulate, confident, and expressive person. And writing it's one of the most valuable commodities in this day and age. We have quite a shifting jobs market, and I can't tell you how much I look at CVs and applications for jobs here at the university and elsewhere in other projects I'm involved in. And a lot of people don't really know how to sell themselves, how to write concisely in an engaging way. And that puts you at the very top of other graduates, I would say. Another short thing on why we use workshops, obviously it improves your writing. A key aspect of creative writing is finding your market, your readers, and thinking about who you're writing for. You will learn new types of writing as well. You'll bounce ideas off people, experiment with something new, perhaps try something out of your comfort zone, types of writing you're not familiar with. And yes, there's the improving the drafting process, and the collaborative process of learning from one another can't be underestimated. Most writers are friends with other writers. They're always sending each other work, saying, what do you think of this? And showing their family, what do you think of this? What does it need? And having other people with similar interests and skills around you really makes it a sociable, fun environment in a way that isn't necessarily an aspect of other degrees. I think in a lot of other degrees we tend to focus on ourselves and our mark, whereas here it's about what do you bring to the group? How are you going to grow as an individual? But the one thing I've not mentioned so far is topics. What sort of modules do you look at through the course of your degree? And I've just selected a few here we teach on our BA in creative writing. So I've talked a bit about it already, but one module we look at writing an audience. So the different types of audiences that exist, how to pitch your work to certain audiences, what audiences expect. We do one on practicing poetry, where you perform poetry, go through all the different types of schools of poetry and realize which one you can write. We do writing for social change. So how can writing change the world through manifestos? We do things like how to write prose, where you look at how do you create narrative voice, believable characters, pacing, plot, the mechanics of writing as well. Then obviously we also look at the different genres of writing, so whether it be speculative writing like sci-fi or detective fiction, or genres across the spectrum. We also do one called writing and wellbeing as well, because this notion of self-help books and journaling and improving our well-being through writing is a hugely lucrative school of writing right now. And also ethically, it's incredibly important for ourselves and for wider society. You'll learn a number of employability skills. So it's important to think of it, as we've heard already today, it's not just different genres of writing. It's a broad spread. So you'll have an opportunity to develop screenwriting skills, writing, as I say, manifestos, poetry, prose, flash fiction, which is short fiction. We have a number of short story competitions here. We also have, we've had people like Michael Rosen and Pat Barker do sessions for us, and the literary festivals that we host. So yeah, again, as has been mentioned previously today, do make sure that whatever university you decide to go to, that they have these activities and experiences you can really get involved in addition to your studies. But another, perhaps one of the most important things on top of these workshops and these labs is the notion of feedback and assessment. Now, creative writing, particularly here, and I know it's common across the sector, there are no exams. You have to redraft your work as writers do in the real world, in the publishing industry and elsewhere, to make it the best possible piece of writing you can assemble and put together, and explain to your marker what you try to achieve through that writing. And we're not just writing, say, pieces of poetry all the time for assessment. We're doing things like portfolios, which demonstrate your skills across the vast range of different types of writing that publishers might be interested in. We're doing critical and creative work. We're doing professional development plans, reflective learning journals, as I've mentioned, and blogs as well. Online content writing is where a lot of jobs are now. But you'll also be doing podcasts and panel discussions where you'll be getting assessed on your contributions and your production values, because one of the most popular ways people engage with culture now is through the podcast. You'll do contributions to anthologies as well. So our literary society here has published books, so there's always the opportunity, I would say, creative writing to get published, and take that opportunity while you're studying. You'll have a major project at most universities. You'll have like a long form project that you need to complete over your third year, as the work gets difficult on a year-by-year basis. And look out for flexible and supportive approach to teaching using cutting-edge digital technologies. So it's not just sitting down and writing with a quill like Shakespeare used to do. It's thinking about all the different technologies through which you can express yourself. And yes, it's also important to look at who will be teaching you as well. Here we have award-winning poets, best-selling authors, and leading scholars in the field, some of whom are there. So do have a look at who teaches at the university as well. Make sure they can put their money where their mouth is, as it were, and are teaching you hints and tips and skills from within the publishing industry itself. And these are, I know we've talked about careers today already, but here's a number of careers that studying in this way will enable you to be employed in such a way. So we have students like Abby, who now works at HarperCollins. Johnny recently wrote a horror film called The Dare, which is now streaming across the world, and he's doing very well. We've had a playwright, Louise Powell, have a play on at the West End. But there's all sorts of other things as well. Marketing, as we've mentioned, one of our students currently runs a gallery here. So there's heritage, the heritage sector. A large proportion go on to do teaching, journalism, anything that involves basically the written word, trying to explain something, capture an audience, convince somebody to what it is you're trying to sell them is, as I've said, a highly valued commodity, and there's no business out there, no matter what size, that doesn't have somebody who is a wordsmith, who's skilled with words, who can get people interested. So thank you for listening to me waffle on. If you have any more questions, I'm happy for you to email me if you want more information about the academic perspective or our course here at Teesside. But I hope that was helpful, and that gives you a better insight into what you'll be doing day to day. You can follow us on social media, and thank you very much.